All right, so I made this video before, but I'm gonna do it again real quick. How did I get saved? So, man, I actually got saved overnight. All right, and it actually happened during the COVID period. I believe it was what 2020. All right, so I had a hard time breathing. I caught COVID. I used to go out a lot, and I caught COVID. Didn't really think it was real, but obviously I found out it was real because I couldn't breathe and my body was shutting down. I didn't want to go to the hospital, so I just stayed at home and just try to ride it out. And that was actually the worst idea ever. I stayed at home for about 2 weeks, and finally my body actually started shutting down, and my body started. I had a hard time breathing. I had a hard time coughing, anything. I had a hard time catching my breath, and I finally just texted my sister and told her, hey, I need a ride to the hospital. And she really didn't believe me. And I had to really convince her, like, hey, I have it for real, for real. And at the time, nobody around me or anywhere near had actually had the serious COVID. People were like, yeah, they had to wear the mask and they had it, but it was light stages, but I actually had it pretty bad. I just waited so long. And my sister came, picked me up. I ran to the truck and they took me to the hospital, and I was just so out of it. I was so weak. And because I caught COVID early, I actually got taken care of very well. So thank God for that. I was so thankful just for that. Wow. I was able to get a room to myself. The doctors were able to, check me out and asked me if I needed anything. So I got pretty good service when I was in a hospital. All right. And through that time, I was like, okay, well, at least, I'm with professionals. They're going to take care of me. I'll be good. So I was in a hospital. Let's say, I was in I guess, like in a private room for about 4 days, where you're very sanitized and nobody can go in there. Of course, there was no visitors. I was feeling weak. I was so in and out of it. I was literally just laying there. And, there was a lot of reflection going on. I was really reflecting on my life, everything. And I want to say it was like day 5. They moved me rooms and said, hey, we need somebody else to come in here. So we're going to move you to a different room. And this room was not like super private. It was actually a bigger room. And I could walk a little bit with the machine. I was hooked to a machine so I could breathe. I wasn't able to breathe on my own yet. But they moved me rooms and it was more comfortable. And that's really where I gave my life to Christ, in that room. And man, I was just so out of it. And actually what happened, the steps that it took was, so I needed to use the restroom, and I've been on this machine for about 5 days, and I thought enough was enough. Like I need to use the restroom, and the nurse, she's like, all right, well, let's figure out how we're gonna get this machine I gotta hook you up to the portable machine so you go use the restroom. And I'm like, no, you know what? That won't be necessary. I'm just gonna take it off. I'm gonna use the restroom. I'm gonna come right back, and no big deal. So I took the machine off and I was breathing on my own real quick, and I took like half a step. Like I barely even moved, and I was in need of the machine, and I was like, oh God. And I was just, I thought like got the machine back on. The nurse, she put the machine back on me, and I was like I couldn't catch my breath. I just could not catch my breath. And I just remember it was hurting, and I just could not catch my breath. And I wanted that machine to just like help me breathe, help me. And I was just, man, I hit rock bottom at that moment. I hit rock bottom, and I was just slowly trying to catch my breath, slowly, and I finally, like, okay, I was stable somewhat, but I was so exhausted, and I was just so tired of it. Like I was so tired, exhausted, And finally, I just said, man, I'm just so tired of this, because it was a fight. When you have COVID, it's a fight. Like you're just trying to breathe, and it's 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. And for me, it was already like almost 3 weeks, especially a fighting of just being weak and just trying to eat and trying to summon energy. So at that moment, as I was closing my eyes, I just asked God to show me anything. Lord, please show me something. I remember like I was just in prayer and I just told God, Lord, show me something, and I just felt like I was out of it. I was completely out of it. Like I felt like I was going to die. Literally. I remember my breathing was so slow. I remember exactly how I was breathing. I'm still recording. So I remember exactly how I was breathing. And it was just so slow. And finally, I just gave my life to Christ. And Jesus. So, all right. So I was breathing so slow and I just didn't know what to do. And finally, I said, Lord, show me something. Please show me something. And as I went to sleep, man, I woke up and I was like in heaven, literally. And my heart just changed like right away. And I can explain exactly what I saw, exactly how I felt, everything. I've done it multiple times. I've explained it so many times. And I'm just going to say like, so it was like super white, super bright. And man, the presence of God was there. It was Jesus Christ. Like the presence of Jesus was just peaceful, and just being in his presence, you knew it was going to be fine. And this was something that I hadn't had in a while. Like there was no more desperation. There was no more like hard feelings. There was no more sadness. There was none of that. It was just peace. And you knew everything was going to be okay. At a time where, in a world where you just didn't know what was going on, being in the presence of Jesus Christ in heaven, like you just knew everything was going to be fine. So that's one of the biggest things I remember. And I remember just thinking like, wow, like this is real, So the question of Jesus Christ being real is not a question anymore to me. It is a fact because I've seen it. I've been there. I felt it. I felt the Holy Spirit. I felt the presence of God, the Father. Man, so that is no longer a question to me. Like I know it's real. All right. So when I read the Bible, I know it's real. Like when I read the word, I know it happened. I know it's facts. All right. Also because before I had my experience, yes, I was very skeptical. I was very like, why? Like it makes no sense. And man, I knew people go to church. I knew, people preach. But I think one of the biggest things is learning that these are facts, that God is real and everything God says will come to pass. That is huge. That is the biggest thing to get. Right. So when I had my experience, that was no longer a question. When I had my heavenly experience, it was no longer a question. I knew the facts. I knew God was real. I knew heaven was real. I knew angels were real. I knew you can communicate using the Holy Spirit. I knew that was real. So everything here in the Word is real. And that was the biggest thing. All right. So I just want to encourage you to, just realize that this is all real. Jesus Christ is real. God is real. And all his promises will come to pass. He will keep all his promises. All right. And that is huge. All right. If you truly understand that, like you are ahead of time, like you are way ahead. All right. Imagine someone who doesn't, who's still skeptical about those things. If you're not skeptical about those things, like you are far ahead, like automatically. And the fact that I had my heavenly experience and it all lined up with the Bible, that really just changed my whole life. and I gave my life to Christ. I told God, I was like, Lord, I that's it. I'm done. Like, I'm done. And by done, I mean, like, I was done living the worldly life. I was done. And I believe that God knew that, yeah, that I was done. I was really on an empty tank. I was literally on an empty tank, man. And that's when God came into my life. And I decided, hey, I want to get saved. And God just showed me everything. Like, he told me what to do. Like, hey, you need to get baptized. All right. And just follow my lead. And that's really what I've been doing. Just following God's lead, just reading his word, just putting it out there, just speaking on it, meditating on it, and just step by step, and I really looking forward to just doing more and more work, like just keep on serving God. I really look forward to it, so that's really, that's my story, and pretty much in a nutshell. I've told the story many times. I probably, write it down and make a huge video on it one of these days. Like, man, it was an awesome experience. That's all I can remember, but yeah, thank you for just listening to me and just hearing me out. And you know what? God bless you. All right. All right.